Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the Late Challenge podcast with us two gobshites. In this week's show, I'll be having a big chat about the music you're not meant to like. Robbo will have another fact of the week.
Of course.
Which I didn't check with you, but you haven't yet.
I have.
We'll talk about mad internet reviews and I'll finally read out my favourite letter that I've been talking about and threatening to do for months.
Will you though?
Will I though? That's what I mean, I've said that so many times now. But the reason I've decided to throw that in this week, as a heads up, this is one of those bending time shows, isn't it? Where we're actually recording this after last week's show because Robbo's on holiday. You'll be on holiday right about now,
I'm on holiday
when people
now.
are watching, listening to this.
Yeah, I'm on the beach.
So if something mad or mental has happened and you're wondering why the fuck are those two gobshites not talking about it, that's why.
But importantly though as well, we can stress here that as the sign says, get on our Patreon.
Because, you're changing the way you say it?
Am I?
Yeah,
Patreon.
Yeah.
Patreon.
Because that fella said, didn't you say Patreon?
Patreon. Maybe I am.
You changed it.
I'm just overthinking it, aren't I? Because he said that. But yeah, if something that earth shattering has happened, I'm taking me gear to record gear.
So you will get live. So what we're saying is they will get live reaction to the end of the world from
as long as Turkey's got the internet,
Turkey, yeah.
which I'm sure it has. Yeah, we'll do it. I'll contribute from Turkey on the Patreon. Are you going to subscribe now, mate? That I've said it differently.
He said he would, didn't he?
Yeah.
Right. So we're on confirmation you've subscribed. Robbo has changed how he speaks. That's dedication, isn't it? To our followers.
That's how into customer service I am.
And amazingly, I mean, this is unrelated and I can even hear my voice going now. We recorded the last show in real time about an hour ago and I've managed to get sick since then.
Yeah,
that's wild,
weird,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I can feel myself getting more sick by like the minute.
I'm not into this news because you're not sat that far away from me.
I'm
trying to go on holiday.
We're not even socially distanced, are we? Back from COVID days, it's just that we're not far enough. Anyway.
Got the leggy.
I reckon you're a safe distance.
What a fucking
Should we wear masks?
No.
Right. Anyway, we're gonna start with music because we chatted about music a couple of weeks ago. Did we do it on the main show or Patreon? I think we'd mainly done it on Patreon, didn't we?
Yeah.
But we mainly talked about cool stuff like Oasis and the Beatles, right, which you're always safe talking about, aren't you? And you mentioned hating Coldplay last week, and someone commented, it was, I don't even know how to say your handle, mate, at Paul Zeus7V. He said, I love it when you get comments like this. He said, Oasis aren't even the best band from Manchester. And as for Robbie Williams, fucking hell. Because I mentioned I'd been to a Robbie Williams concert and enjoyed it. And you replied saying, I never said Oasis were the best band from Manchester.
I know, yeah.
But I actually thought after, who's he claiming is then? He doesn't.
Stone Roses, Joy Division,
for?
New Order.
But I'm saying Oasis stands toe to toe at least with all of them. They're at least in with an argument, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean,
I would say
they're quite
they are
big,
the best. Yeah.
I mean, like people wouldn't be bothered about the eternal question of whether they're going to reform if no one was bothered.
No one give a shit.
And like Liam wouldn't sell out Nebworth on his own if no one was asked.
Yeah.
So I think they are quite big.
Yeah. Well, they literally sold out Nebworth together as like when they did that concert. That was the biggest concert of all time, wasn't it?
I think a lot of people were saying though, like, did you see like Blair played Wembley or did a few gigs at Wembley?
Time or recently?
No, the other week.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were saying certainly like sort of didn't have any. Didn't have skin in the fight when it was Blair v Oasis. I mean, I like both bands. A lot of people were saying like, well, I've gone and seen Blair there, and actually, you know what, they've got some tunes in their back catalogue, like. But Oasis aren't here anymore to sort of like punch back, are they? Do you know what I mean? Like they're not going to go and do their Wembley dates because they're not together. And even if they were to be together again, who would it be? Like because
we chatted about that, didn't we? But effectively, it's funny, isn't it? Because like. I don't really, we're probably going over stuff we said on Patreon, but I don't really understand why Liam is so desperate to get back with Noel when he's literally playing Nebworth by himself with Oasis tunes.
Well, he has to pay Noel though, doesn't he? Every time they play any Oasis
just
stuff.
Sticks in his craw,
Probably.
as they say.
Probably.
Where is your craw?
I don't know. Is it in your throat or something?
Is it? Why does shit stuff stick in there?
But also a lot of Liam's tunes aren't written by him as well, are they? So Like I don't think he's skint. I think he's all right. I think he did go through a stage divorce-wise where it was a bit moody, but I think he's all right now, isn't he?
Well, isn't that the rumour now that Noel's getting divorced,
Noel,
which is why he's actually making positive noises towards it?
I know,
sort of.
Again, I think he's all right, isn't he? Given what he's wrote.
I'm sure he'd be fine. And it'll be funny, like seeing what check bounces through his door every month, wouldn't it? For all the old tunes. But anyway, what I want to talk about was, like, that's all the cool stuff. I watched Rick Astley at Glastonbury on iPlayer on Sunday night from this year.
Really good.
And it was boss just watching an old cheesy 80s act that I remember from when I was growing up, just living his best life. Like, he clearly just fucking loved it. Loved every minute of it. Was joking with the crowd. Played his, hits. Did that thing where he was even joking with them saying, like, how many of you had just turned up to watch me sing Never Gonna Give You Up at the end? And I just love watching shit like that these days. And I don't know whether that's because I'm getting old or not, but something that makes me laugh about stuff like that is we've been brought up in a very, like, men and men, manly city. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be trying to be cool. And I remember this happening when I was about 18. I remember being in, this is a little local reference for people who know it, in the Deja Vu part of the Paradox nightclub. Do you remember where that was? Yeah. So this for people who aren't from around there, it was near Aintree Racecourse. I use that as a reference point that's where I grew up, in a northern suburb of Liverpool. And the Deja Vu was like the cheesy, like poppy part of the club. And I remember saying to one of my mates, I could just, like, the Backstreet Boys or someone like that were on. And I was just looking around the room thinking, I can see like loads of lads mouthing the words to this, but no one would fucking admit that they liked Backstreet Boys. Do you know what I mean? And I remember saying to my mate, do you like Backstreet Boys? And he went to me, do you? And I went, yeah, I think that's sound. And he was like, yeah, I do too, but don't fucking tell anyone. And it reminded me, because when I was watching...
just blowing him up, your grass.
I know, I didn't give his name. Should I might blackmail him. But it always makes me laugh, that, because even the crowd watching Rick Astley at Glastonbury, the age range was ridiculous. And there was like fellas older than us singing along to Never Gonna Give You Up, knew all the words. And I love all that, right? So what I wanted to have a chat about is my music taste is and always has been all over the place. Like, I've loved like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and swing music and all that. Also loved Oasis and the Beatles. Going to the Ocean Coliseum in December, like in Sheffield. But I've happily like gone to see Take That live, Westlife live, Robbie Williams, the likes of S Club 7, Backstreet Boys, Joe from like poppy stuff back in the day. And I wanted to just have a chat about, because I sort of perceive you as a cool band fan. So what's your view on all this stuff, and what's your music game?
Yeah, so I know what you're getting at. So like, I am banging to my music, and I always have been, and like I used to buy all the stuff like Enemy and Melody Maker and Select and what have you. Yeah, but there's no doubt about it. There's been times where like I've been into stuff that's definitely not considered cool, but by and large, I would say, like, if people were like looking at everything I'm into, the overall picture would be, well, he's into like indie stuff, you know what I mean? Top of the league, if you like. But then, also like stuff that I don't think is uncool, like obviously Beatles, Stones, Who, Zeppelin, all that kind of stuff. In terms of stuff that's deemed, I would say less cool. I like Quo. I always have done, and that's inherited from my dad, because my dad likes status quo. And like when I first sort of like got anything that I could play music on, like a Walkman and a ghetto blaster and things like that, my dad had like loads of albums on tape, so I'd play his tapes, do you know what I mean? And like he had Beatles and he had stuff like that, but he had loads of Quo. And I went to, I reckon I've not really shouted about that much, do you know what I mean? But like, do you know what? Like the way I generally listen to music now is when I'm out and about or I'm in the car or whatever it is, I can't be bothered like sitting there curating a playlist on Spotify. I pay for the premium because I don't want to listen to the advert. But I just basically have like one playlist that I continually add to. And it's got about 5,000, 6,000 songs on it. Just like
You've
songs.
You've got one playlist?
Yeah. And so I just have that on shuffle, basically. And like I continually add to it, like, do you know what I mean? Like, so if I hear something, I'll Shazam it to find out what it is. And then I'll add it to my liked library on Spotify. I like sometimes, don't get me wrong, I'll go, I fancy listening to X, but 9 times out of 10, me no stress, no big thinking about it is just go to the liked section, bang that on, shuffle, and then anything can come up that I've ever liked. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I want to come back to this in a second, right? Because I realised when I was writing this, I've realised in recent months that I like some Harry Styles songs and didn't know it was him. But you've just reminded me when you said Shazam then, because in the middle of Rick Astley's set, he started singing a song and he went, he sang a song and he went, none of you know this. And then he went to sing his next one. He went, from one no one knows to one everyone will know. And as he started singing it, I was thinking, this isn't his song, but I know what this is. So I got Shazam out and it was dead funny. Joe, we've talked about like ChatGPT and all that loads over the shows. It was dead funny watching Shazam because I was just picturing it being like a real person. Like it was like Shazam was going to me. Gives a minute. Hang on. I recognise this. Wait. And it just kept going.
Doesn't work on live music, does it?
Is that what it is?
Yeah, because it's a digital signal in the in the song. So like, if it's live, it doesn't work.
But it was like I was going to you. Who's this, mate? And he was going, I know it. I recognise it.
Hang on.
Give me a minute. And he just kept going. Hang on. I've got. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's on. And then he just suddenly went, nah, I don't know. By then I was like, it's Harry Styles.
Yeah, I think one of his songs, but it's the one where he went like. He suddenly sounded like an indie band.
Yeah, did he? I don't know enough of them. I couldn't even tell you what they're called.
No, I couldn't. But
so if we delved into this massive playlist of yours,
so you got like Quo in there, like I'm saying.
What's the least? Like this phrase of like people talk about guilty pleasures, but I don't like that.
No,
I don't see why you need to be guilty about stuff.
You sent this before, didn't you? So like when I were between these shows, last week's and this week's or whatever. I was walking around town with my headphones in and it was on that liked playlist where it can go anywhere by its own accord. And Genesis came on. So that I would say that's one because I think certainly judging about how people were about it at school and things like that, like if you liked the Peter Gabriel era of Genesis, that was acceptable. But then if you like the Genesis bit, that wasn't seen as cool because it's Phil Collins, and then obviously like Phil Collins is obviously like a bad Tory, so there's that aspect to it. But I'm not asked like about stuff like that. You know what I mean? Certainly not now at this stage of life. So like there's some bangers there that I was into when I was that age, when I was at school. So I've like re-added them not that long ago either. And one of them came up before. It was off the Invisible Touch album. I can't remember the name of the song now. It wasn't Invisible Touch like. And I was like, this is a banger. I'm not asked. And like there's a few like that. There's loads of random ones where I don't really know why I really like them, but I do like. I reckon another one that's definitely not cool. Duran Duran. I've got a bit of Duran Duran in my liked folder or my liked list. So that's in there as well. That definitely. And like, you know what? I don't mind a bit of Pet Shop Boys as well.
We're getting deeper now.
Yeah, some of that. Well, that's what I mean. But none of these are like, I wouldn't be putting posters up on my wall or wearing a t-shirt. And I'm not, it's not that deep how much I'm into them. Do you know what I mean? It's more like,
just like the odd song.
Yeah. And you're like, and look, there's loads of songs, isn't there, that just punctuate your life that when they come up at another time, you're like, fucking hell, remember that? And like, the other thing they've got on Spotify now, I don't know if you've got onto it, is Smart Shuffle as well. So
I've seen this, yeah.
You'd have your own list if you like. So say that liked list with 5,000 songs or whatever. I've got Smart Shuffle turned on as well. And so that's looking at what you're into and just randomly adding songs into your list.
Yeah.
I find it hit and miss though, personally.
Yeah.
Like it was throwing Keen in for me the other day and I was like, no, I'm not keen on Keen. You can fuck right off with that.
Did you tell it?
It threw in a bit of Snow Patrol as well, and I just think he's boring, that fella. I don't get it, so I swerved that. Well, I just don't like. Yeah. I just skip it and I don't add it to my library, and I'm hoping it's learning from its mistakes. The knobhead.
Have a little chat with it.
Don't give me Keen again. I got a thing once, you know, like those like end of year things you get off it, where it makes a playlist of what you've been listening to and says who your top artist is and all that. I got a thing the other year saying you're in the top 5% in the country for your usage of Spotify.
Really?
And I was like, wow.
Okay,
I knew
now.
we listened to music a lot, but like I wasn't expecting that. Like, and then I thought, so they saying that to everyone, but I checked with a few people and they
No,
weren't.
I definitely didn't get that.
So I was
Do you know
like,
what though? The people get in touch with you now saying they want access because your playlist is, you can make public, can't you?
You can, yeah. Well, I've got a couple of public ones, I think, because I made one and I sort of got people to help me a bit. It was that nice, actually. I enjoyed doing that. I made like a Liverpool playlist. And so I added in all stuff that come off, top of my head straight away. And then I just started throwing out on Twitter. I think it was during lockdown or something. It's like, throw us your songs that you think should be on like if you were doing like a Scouse Liverpool playlist. And people were throwing me stuff. And there was a few like, left field shouts, but I liked it. Do you know what I mean? I was actually thinking the other day, talked on here, didn't I, a few weeks ago about the real thing, about them being from Tocky and all that. And I was thinking they should be on that. They should be in that. Have I added them? So I'm going to check that after the show, actually. So that Liverpool one, anyway, is that's public. So if people want to have a go of it, Robbo Heighton on Spotify, and you can find that Liverpool playlist and have a go of it. And like I've had good feedback on it as well. People have said it's good, though. Because it's all different eras, different music. And I guarantee that if you have a go of it, there'll be one or two in there that you maybe haven't heard.
That's still quite cool, though. So, like, what I'm intrigued at is, like, is there any... Have you ever been into like poppy stuff? I mean, I used to like when I mentioned S Club 7 and all them before. I can't imagine you ever.
I've took the piss out of them, like, do you know what I mean?
But wouldn't you like on a night out? Wouldn't you go be like in Pop World? Would you ever go there and have a dance to that type of music? No?
I hated Pop World.
Did you?
It wasn't really for me that. It was more like a Labato type man. You know what I mean? Like I don't. Trying not to like go out as much these days now if I can help it, like, and I'm more of, when I do, I'm more pub fella now, aren't I? But no, those type of gaffs didn't really interest me. Like I don't know, I wouldn't say I'm like a snob about these things or try. I mean, I used to go to shit gaffs like Ferraris and Iton, and like, that would be all like I've got the key, I've got the secret or whatever, you know what I mean? And like,
you ever into that, like Scouse House and all that dance music?
No, not really.
Can't picture that.
I went to the music, was it the Music Factory? And there was another one as well, Republic in Sheffield when I was at uni there. Only because everyone else was going, though, you know what I mean? It wasn't really my scene. Like, off to the left, or not even off to the left, but like away from the stuff, I think, like, I'm just into guitar bands, well, largely, but like I love like Orbital, and I like a bit of ambient stuff in like Aphex Twin and things like that. So I've got a bit of that to me game. I wouldn't say it's uncool though. But they're really popular. I mean, I used to buy, when I was a kid, like, I used to buy them hit tape things, you know what I mean? Hits tape 6 and all that with like absolute, and I'd sing along to whatever. I used to tape the charts as well, back when that was a thing, and try and pause it when the fella started speaking.
Oh, no, this thing, isn't it? Did we start talking about this the other week, or did we say we were going to?
I don't know.
Do not tape over.
Yeah, you said you were going to bring that up, yeah.
Yeah.
Do not tape over for that.
That's a reference, isn't it, for like a certain like generation of people. Like, I reckon most people who are listening to this will be like, yes, do not tape over. And then you find out your mum's taped over your fucking, the best concert you've ever fucking
Which did
done.
actually happen.
And she's recorded over with Coronation Street. You're like, what the fuck?
I was fuming. I had one of them. I had, there was a Floyd concert that I had taped off the telly, and it was on in like the middle. It was on like it was on the telly in the middle of the night or late on. So I taped it, and it was like them playing at Pompeii, I think it was, and it was boss, and I loved it. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, yes, and like I did all that, like took the little tab out of the video and like wrote all over it, like do not tape over, like Pink Floyd live, Gareth's tape, all of that.
Gareth's tape,
you know what I mean? The full hit. And
that was stated to people. There'll be people, well, probably not listen to this. The lads here, probably. We should check in with the younger generation.
Oh, they won't know.
Won't have a clue what we're talking about.
No.
That was state of the art technology, wasn't it? To stop someone taping over a tape, you just pulled out this plastic tab, and then you'd write. Everyone had the same phrases: Gareth's tape, Paul's tape, do not tape over. Very important.
All of that, and like, so all of that, I'd made all the steps. You know what I mean? And my ma still taped over it. And
think of what she had to do to ignore all
that's what I mean. She put sellotape over the fucking tab.
Yeah.
And she's looked at a sticker that says Gareth tape, Pink Floyd,
thought,
all of that. And she
you ever talked to her about this?
Gardening.
This could be childhood trauma for you.
I think it is. Gardening on it was, you know what I mean? So I come down to fucking watch it once, and gardening came on, and I was just like, fuck it, really? But you know what, like, you know, maybe like in the grand scheme of things, like maybe my fellas up there now like laughing at me going, well, now you know how I felt, you little shit, because he used to have like a, you know, like separates, like a, you know, a record deck, the radio, you know, an amplifier, like a proper old school hi-fi, whatever you want to call it. And I always used to mess with it because I liked music and also I liked fucking messing with things. And he always used to say, don't mess with that. That's mine. This is my music. You've got your own thing to listen to music on. This is mine. And what he did once, and this always sticks in my head, it's not a traumatic experience. I think it's quite funny. But it always reappears, like every now and again. Like now it's reappearing, obviously, but every now and again it'll just pop up in my mind and I'll laugh to myself. So what he did was, the effort he's gone to here, by the way, he recorded himself and it was on a tape, and then that tape was set to play and the volume was turned up, but then he turned the power off. So when little me goes to the stereo and presses power, the first thing that happens is this tape plays at the exact point where he's saying, what was it? And he put it on dead loud, so it boomed all over the house as well. Alarm, alarm, alarm. Gareth Roberts is messing with the stereo.
This is fucking brilliant. Your dad's a fucking genius.
And I absolutely fucking shit myself. I was like, trying to turn it off. Like, what do we do?
But, that's class.
But what was funny about that as well is that obviously like manifested as an idea then in my head. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there was a future point when I was like a teenager. Yeah, definitely. I was like 17, 18. And I don't know if you had this, but like, you know, like, so you'd have mates, don't you? Like, your mates with all the way through school, and then you get to sort of like go in the pub age, and like the dynamics start to change because like some will go to college, some will get jobs, they've got money, you haven't, all of that kind of thing. So all those dynamics started to happen. And one lad that we hung around with at the time had money because he got an apprenticeship. So he had like, you know, he still lived with his ma, but he had like a car, and he was, you know, he had like Bosch Clobber and all this kind of stuff. And I was just at a college, so I was skint, do you know what I mean? And so he kept getting like Bosch stuff all the time, and like we'd all be like a little bit jealous. And there was, his mum and dad went away this weekend, and he was like, right, you know, we can all bail in at mine type of thing. And he had this big, he bought this big Kenwood stereo, which at the time was very impressive with big speakers and all this, and it did this and it did that, and you could program this, and it had one of them, you know, you could put 6 CDs in it, and it had,
remember them?
I mean? Yeah.
That was state of the art, wasn't it? When it would come out and they'd move around, you'd be like, ooh.
But he stupidly pointed out that one of the things it could do was like, you know, you could program it to like, you know, go off at a specific point in a song and all this kind of stuff. And instantly, obviously, my mind went back to me and my dad with that stereo and what he did. And I thought, that's fucking interesting, isn't it? So he was going to be a kip in his room that night. And we were kipping downstairs. Like, I was just going to be on the couch. Someone was on the deck, whatever. And so I just thought, right, I've got a little plan here. So do you know the song Time by Pink Floyd?
No.
So it starts off and it's just like a tick-tock, 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 like that for ages. And then just before the song goes in and it goes into the guitars and everything, there's like the noise of like hundreds of clocks, alarms all going off at once, or like bong, bring, you know, all different types of alarm. So he's got these 4 speakers around this room that are big fuck off speakers that like really kicked out some sound on his big fancy Kenwood stereo. So I programmed his CD to that exact point where all that clocks go off. And I programmed it for 8:30 in the morning. And then I made sure that downstairs we were awake at like 20 past. And we just like sat downstairs basically looking at the ceiling, just waiting, looking at our watches, waiting for it to tick to 8:30. And you just hear boom, boom, boom. He fucking fell out of bed and everything's there like, fuck him. And I was so made up with myself. And I was like, you know, I don't think if my dad hadn't have done what, you know, that to me, I wouldn't have done that to him. You never got
that idea.
Do you know what I mean? So there's an idea for someone else can have it now. It might manifest with someone else now, mightn't it?
This is the thing. This is me sounding middle-aged, right? I'm not sure there's enough kids doing shit like that these days, are there? Like, I used to love doing stuff like that when I was a kid. And not even just as a kid, like getting older. I remember, I mean, this is completely off topic now, but I remember me mum and dad went on holiday, and this is when mobile phones had just started. And so I've got an older sister, she's 2 years older than me, and outside her bedroom's on the back of the house, and underneath it is like a sloped roof where the lounge or the living room is like extended out downstairs but not upstairs. So you could get on the roof outside their window, and it was just after, do you remember the original Scream movie? Yeah. It was just after that had come out, and we'd watched it while my mum and dad were away. I must have been, when did they first leave us? I must have been 15 and she was 17. And like, so we watched it, probably weren't meant to, and she was shitting herself. And I waited till she went to bed, and I knew like there was proper like brick mobiles, but like the Motorola ones. And there must have been two. So I got a ladder out, went like to my dad's garage, got a ladder out, crawled, climbed up onto the roof outside their bedroom, and then phoned her on the mobile phone and pretended to be like, she was a monster from Scream, and then started tapping on the window. And she fucking, she honestly screamed the house down to the extent that I think I had mates there, like, and I think we'd had a couple of bevies. I nearly fell off the roof because it was like, I was like, that's wild, that when you think back, isn't it?
I mean, I'm sure all this gear does still go on in some way. Do you remember, like, randomly this, but like, it's just coming to me head. I don't know if this was like, you know, surely it was elsewhere in Liverpool, but, you know, I grew up in Eighton, and it was happening in Eighton. That's all I can tell you. But there was a thing that went round, like this knowledge went round, that basically, if you messed around with a payphone in a certain manner, like you'd had to hang up, pick it up, do something in a bit of an order, press a couple of buttons and all that, you got like 70 quid credit.
Yeah, I remember.
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And
it's like some secret code.
Yeah, it was like, you know, I don't know if it was like for engineers to be able to test the phones or whatever it might be. Who knows why it was there, but it was there, and it became fairly common knowledge that it was a thing you could do. So obviously, like, once we knew about it, we're just going to pay phones, doing it. You've got 70 odd quid credit, and you can just ring whoever you want, say whatever you want, do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like, we're ringing chat lines and all kinds, and then getting lashed out because we clearly sounded too young. I remember, like, you know, one lad we would once, and like he rang. He went, I'm going to ring France. So go ahead then. And like, he rang France, and like, just, you know, like someone answers the phone, like bonjour or whatever, and he's like, bonjour, Easy France Telecom and all this, and like had this little conversation with them. Like, you mad bastard, why have you just thought of that? Why did you want to ring France? But like, I remember it must have obviously gone round that it was a thing and that people were doing it and all that, because we got legged by the busies a couple of times in the end, and it was like, okay, they're on it now.
But do you see, well, it's interesting because you've got teenage kids now, haven't you? Yeah. I'm not saying, because our parents most of the time didn't know the shit we were up to, did they? But I do think there's a shift here, because think about all those things. We were doing those things to keep ourselves entertained. I know. Because there was nothing else to do, really. I know. And I've seen people talk about this, like, Joe, the beauty of being bored, even as grown-ups. Allow yourself to be bored, and that's when you become creative and you think of ideas. Whereas now, we're just stimulated constantly. Like, kids are just put on YouTube, just put on the internet,
or just sit off on your phone for hours.
So like, I've seen this with my niece and nephew who are now teenagers, and I'm starting to see it with like my stepkids, even with the 5 and 3 year old going on board. And you're like, you haven't been doing anything for 3 seconds and you're bored. Yeah. And I'd say to them, that's good then. It's good to be bored. Go and think of something to do. Go and invent a game but But I think that might all be dying out a bit. Like
it is. I mean, like this is proper our fella chat now, isn't it? But you know, this is the people we're aiming at. I think
on top.
But you know, like I look at things like, you know, like fields even where like I used to play and things like that. When I go back to Whiting, no one on them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There might be like a couple of fellas walking the dog or whatever, but there's not like the games of footy that were there when I was there. And I don't mean like organised team footy. I mean just like lads from your road footy, going out and having a game of footy. Because we used to like, especially like, you know, we're coming up to summer holidays now. We'd literally play footy all day. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And like until it got dark, basically.
You'd have to be dragged in, wouldn't you? Like, you'd be like, I remember me one people like getting in loads of trouble. He's like, you're meant to be in before it's dark. I'm like, yeah, but we haven't finished the game. And like, it was 28-27 and we needed to figure out. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it was literally like jumpers for goalposts.
I just don't think they're happening, or they don't, certainly not happening on the same scale as when we were kids because of, you know, the internet, phones, games, or all the stuff that they can do, you know, to interact with the mates from their own bedrooms, essentially. Because, you know, like my eldest lad now is starting to like sort of like go out and go to places and do things a bit more with his mates, which I'm made up about. Because at one point I was thinking, I know you're like, I didn't want to get on his back about it, but because like I am being the art fella there, aren't I? But like I was like, you know, the only way I see him socialising with his mates outside of school is with headphones on, playing some freaking game. Like, and it's like, yeah, but go and have a game, go for a bike ride. You know what I mean? Like, and they're just all dead shruggy about that. Don't do that. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, we were talking on last week's episode about mental health or whatever. Well, getting outside is good for your mental health. Sunlight, daylight.
Go and have a game of footy instead of playing FIFA.
Yeah.
Go and kick the ball yourself.
But it's sort of, I don't know, there's probably loads of reasons, isn't there, if you dug into why that is. I mean, it's the same with like, I think you've got like a sort of generation of parents now as well that are like petrified about things that could happen to their kids. Whereas
I used to have this.
Things could have happened to us, but you know what? We would let off the leash, and like you were gone at whatever time in the morning, and you come in at whatever time at night. You didn't have a mobile phone.
But this comes back to
you could be up to whatever.
Yeah, but this comes back to something I said last week about that book Factfulness. Like, it's the safest time ever to be a human, basically. And I used to have this argument with my ex-mother-in-law about stuff like, and other people in her generation. She'd go to me, "It's dead dangerous now." I'd like, there's paedophiles everywhere, and I'm like, no. You're getting it completely wrong. The paedophiles were everywhere when you were kids. The stuff that's on the news about paedophiles is from when you were kids. That's what the stuff that's coming out now. They were running riot and they weren't CRB checks and all this other stuff to keep kids safe. It's well safer now than it's ever been. But because the news is like 50 years delayed, it's like we feel more afraid now because of that being reported. And like, that's mental.
You'd always had, or it always felt like anyway, like there'd be like little sort of mini moral panics about some kind of like bogeyman type fella. Do you know what I mean? So there was Purple-Aki, there was Bayards, I think it was anyway. I don't know how far into other part of Liverpool it went, but you know, there was a fella that supposedly knocked round the railway. The Valor man, you know what I mean? Who would and people, you get all these stories about got a legger off this fella, or he was standing outside the school, and you know all.
But we used to have flashes as well. Do we don't have flashes anymore?
Yeah,
do
and
you?
like fellas in white vans, and you know what I mean, and like all these mad like you know those like adverts, but that for like information. You know, fucking, do you want to see some puppies and all like that?
It was always puppies, wasn't it? Do you want to get in my white van and see some puppies? You're like, no, you're literally what they tell me about in school.
Yeah. And then like, do you remember Charlie Says?
No, what was that?
It was like a little animated like lad, and it was all like, you know, like, it was like, and it was like this cat, and like it'd be like Charlie Says, because the Prodigy sampled it, didn't he, on a song? And it was like, you know, it was all like sort of, you know, Charlie says look both ways before you cross the road, or Charlie says don't talk to strangers.
Don't get in a van with a nonce.
Yeah, Charlie says don't be asked about those puppies, you know, because they're
not real.
etc. We've come a long way from
we have
fucking records.
The last line of that section on my agenda was, so let us know what your favourite non-cool acts are.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, we've got fucking gone off track there, haven't we? But anyway, yeah, let us know. Back to the music stuff. Let us know what your favourite non-cool artists are. I love it. That is funny though, isn't it? Like all those little bits of like when you were growing up. Anyway, we've only got 20 minutes left.
Have we?
Yeah. Want to do your fact?
Yeah. So my fact, we'll have to get my bins on for this. Now that the bins have been revealed on the previous show. So yeah, I thought I'd do something about the Second World War. Only because I'm sure most people know, but I get that we've got like plenty of people listening and watching who aren't from Liverpool. I always find it fascinating, the war itself, the stories around the war. You know, I had two granddads who were involved in the war. And I always used to love sort of listening to their stories, and my nan as well, who's still here, who talking about what it was like to grow up in those times. But there's a bit of Merseyside, or a bit of Liverpool that I find fascinating, which is if you walk from sort of Crosby, Waterloo ways up towards Hightown, you've basically got what is Liverpool of old dumped on a beach. And, you know, there's bits of walls and estates and gateposts and all kinds. There's even bits of gravestones somewhere. It's like a history that's slowly being, you know, ebbed away by the sea. And it's essentially like the rubble from the war got dumped there because Liverpool got absolutely blitzed, obviously hammered by the Luftwaffe. And the stats around how much it was hammered, I think, are staggering. You know, in any era, including this one. So, and that bit of beach is, like I say, it's just fascinating. I think you could be walking along it and not even think about it, but I walk along it and do think about it. And like, you'll see like bits of walls or bricks, whatever, but they're slowly like round, like they're almost like lozenges, and that's being a brick, but it's being rounded off by the waves. And I just find it fascinating that so much stuff is still there. And like it's not really talked about that much. In terms of Liverpool and the hammering it took during the Second World War, I think you start off by saying that in 1939, about a third of all imports into the UK passed through Liverpool. So that obviously made it very vulnerable to attack if you're trying to fuck this country up. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So that's why it got absolutely hammered. And the Blitz here in May 1941, from the 1st to the 8th of May, was the most sustained raid on any part of Britain outside London. So during that time that I mentioned, that time frame, 681 planes dropped 870 tons of explosives and more than 112,000 firebombs onto Liverpool. In Bootle, there were 17,000 houses, 8,000 of them were destroyed. St Luke's Church, bombed out church, was destroyed in this raid as well, and is being kept as a permanent memorial to that blitz. And yeah, it's estimated that out of Liverpool's 300,000 homes, 200,000 were damaged, 11,000 destroyed, 70,000 left homeless. And widening it out now, between 1940 and 1942, bombings killed 2,716 people in Liverpool, 442 in Birkenhead, 409 in Bootle, and 332 in Wallasey. 10,000 people injured. And for anyone interested in this, I would just say, like, there's loads of stuff on the museum site and stuff like that, and there's stuff literally in the museum if you come to Liverpool. But I always find the pictures of it mad, especially when you see places or landmarks or buildings that you know so well. So like if you've never seen it, go and look at the shell of Lewis's when it's being bombed, and it's mad. Do you know what I mean? It's like, wow, that's still there. And like, you know, it was almost like two fingers that they restored it again. And you know, and like I might do it as a separate fact, but you know, the fellow with his willy out, Dickie Lewis.
Yeah.
That's what that's about. That was a sculpture to say like Liverpool reborn.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
So that was put up there post the Blitz to say we're still here. We're still going. Lewis is still going. It's being rebuilt.
Fuck yous.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, the whole, like I said, there's absolutely loads of stuff in the museums here in Liverpool about all of that, the Blitz and everything else. And like I say, I just find it fascinating. And I'm fascinating that we've still got people who can tell the stories firsthand, albeit that there are less and less of those now. I mean, like, it was Kelly's mum, I think, always said to me, like, you should just sit down with your nan and like record her. But in a way, yeah, I should. But in another way, I just don't know how that would work, not least because she's her hearing's very much on the decline. But certainly, like, through the years, both me nan and granddad, the stories, like, my nan ended up working in like a munitions factory and stuff like that. I think I've said on here before, actually, in passing about my granddad, and he was just like, I don't think he's seen me dad for like 2.5 years when he was a kid, do you know what I mean? Because he was away with the Navy, like. And it's just mad. It's a mad time. That's not that long ago in relative terms. And it's just like, it's hard to comprehend living through that, especially if you were here, because as I've already mentioned there, we got absolutely blitzed. So that's my fact.
Yeah, boss that. In one way. And awful in another way.
In an interesting way.
Yeah, in an interesting way. Joey, just something that's always fascinated me about war. Like, they call it a world war. But like, you could literally think about those stats about this city. But you could literally, to keep the kids safe, they'd send them to
the country.
North Wales.
Yeah.
It's like an hour away.
I know.
So like, people go, it was a world war. And you're like, yeah, but you could drive an hour away from me and it didn't really affect you. That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you stayed here, it's like, fucking hell, we're at war. But you go to Wales and like, oh, it's fine. But
like, I like the pictures, like I say, I just find absolutely fascinating. Like, wherever you're from, so I said, if you have a look at, like, but especially if you're from here, I think, because you'll see, like I say, you'll just see bits that like, there's one on the museum site of like Walton Vale, but just with massive holes in like, or houses obliterated or pubs gone, that, and things like that. There's one of like Walton Jail with like a huge hole in it. And like, obviously inmates died and then it got hit again at a different point, I think, and they ended up sort of like evacuating the prisoners because, it just wasn't sustainable to have them there during that time. But there's loads of madness. I mean, like, even like where I'm from, Ayton, like there was a half-finished housing estate that got work on it stopped because of the war. And then that became an internment camp for prisoners of war, just in Ayton.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I'll go for it, but I haven't checked it. But so someone can correct me if it's wrong. But Bert Troutman, he was classed as a prisoner of war because he was German. And I'm pretty sure he ended up there for a while in Huyton. I'll stick my neck out on that and hope I was right. But yeah, it's just all fascinating, isn't it? It's just mad to try and get your head around, like, rations and air raid shelters and what that must have been like.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We just can't comprehend it, can we? Like, have you ever seen that thing about, like, I'll completely like fuck this up, but there's a thing about, like, tough times make like tough people, and then you go around in a big cycle, and they're like, yeah, to basically where we are now, with like loads of wimps and weak-minded people, and because we just had it cushy for so long.
I know that.
Like, you can't even comprehend that, can you?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm glad we can't. But
I mean, I can remember as well, so I was born in 76. So obviously, like, 30 years or so afterwards. And like, there was still like air raid shelters or remains of, because, there was one in the grounds of my school in Ayton. There was one at the end of my nan's road in Ayton that was there for years. It's houses now, like, but it was just all these, like, it was just like this concrete building and all bits of iron sticking out of it and what have you. Totally unsafe, like, but it just took a long time for it to go. But that was like a reminder to me when I was a kid that this wasn't that long ago. Do you know what I mean? And even when you read about sort of like the rebuilding of Liverpool as well, post-war, it was like one of the reasons all those bricks end up on the beach is there wasn't really a plan, because how do you plan for that? Do you know what I mean? Like, we're just going to literally destroy your city, crack on.
Yeah.
And so, when they did crack on, they needed to move all this rubble. What were they doing with it? Oh, just throw it on the beach there. And then it's like, no one's ever done anything about it, and so it's just still there.
Yeah.
And like, there's nothing explaining why it's there, or you know what I mean. And I just think like, how many people must walk the beach and just go, how come there's loads of bricks here? I don't know. And like, when I was actually Googling, because it's something that has genuinely fascinated me for years. And when I was Googling around it, just, you know, getting some of those facts and figures, there was actually an archaeology student from the area who got a bit of a campaign going at one point to say like, this is like a historic spot. You know, this should be like signposted, you know what I mean? This should be recorded, and, you know, like, let's try and trace what buildings these bits have come from. And she did a bit of it herself. But when I found her Twitter account, she hadn't tweeted for a couple of years. So I don't know whether she's just like ended up, she's got a job or whatever, but I thought that was a good little idea, that, do you know what I mean? I think it'd be nice if there was something on the beach that told you what it was and why it's there and what the story of it is and that kind of thing.
Well, I reckon if we do this for long enough, there's going to be a growing movement to get you a TV show around this, so you can do it as part of that.
There's going to be something I mentioned one time that, you know, by luck or judgment, someone might pick up on something, or someone just might randomly do something, and I could say, oh yeah.
Because when you think about how much TV there needs to be these days, I can't believe people would watch this as a TV show, wouldn't they?
Well, even
your facts and the history stuff,
cricket club stuff that I've mentioned, there's fingers crossed little things that might come of that. So there's been a couple of conversations, so we'll see what happens. I'm not saying that it's down to me or anything. It's more that I've mentioned it, someone's got in touch with me, then I've been talking to someone else, and maybe all these things can align and maybe something can be done. It'd be fantastic if it could be.
Nice. Keep us informed.
Yeah, absolutely. More as we have it.
Boss that. Nice one, mate. So we've only got 10 minutes left, but we are gonna get to the part of my agenda I've been carrying for months. The internet challenge. I just want to have a little chat in the time we've got left about mad internet reviews. We touched on this last week. Can't remember if it was on the main show or on Patreon, but about, like, you know, comments on social media and stuff. And I love it. I love the world of internet reviews and stuff. So I want you listening or watching this to send us in any you see, any of the favourites you've got. Like, just to mention a couple from ours recent, like, there was a fella, did you see that? I can't remember who, I couldn't even find these because they're from weeks ago, but I just meant, so there was someone moaning that he'd seen us mention Patreon before, so we don't need to mention it again. He was like, I've seen you say that before. I've heard you say it. And I'm like, I was just thinking to myself, are you like that with every advert on TV?
I'm like
going to Paddy Power. I know you do a gambling company. Just stop telling me.
There are some ads though.
It's not just for
I don't think we're that bad like for that, but there are some ads that like proper dig into my brain, and I know that's the point, but they get overplayed. Like, you know, particularly like Talk Sport's terrible for it in terms of like playing the same ads on, like, you know, like the Selco, it's where the trade goes, and there's a big Selco in Aintree, and so I drive past it, and it's going in me. It's where the trade goes, and you're like, But you know what? Even if I was at a trade, and even if like I needed to buy something, I feel like I wouldn't go to Selco on principle now. Yeah. But it, like, so, or like the We Buy Any Car and all that kind of stuff. And I get it. I know that that's the idea, that it digs into your brain, stays there, and that if you want to do something in whatever the advert area is, you use the one that you've heard a million times. But some of them are, I mean, I know this is middle-aged rant territory, but some of them are like annoying. Do you know what I mean? But do you remember adverts when you were a kid? Do you remember like adverts off the radio that I haven't been on the radio for 20 and 30 years?
I don't remember much of when I was a kid, but...
Do you know what I remember? Like Malcolm Ross, the solicitors, and, you know, Davy Live Cabs, 708, 7080.
Oh God, Davy Live Cabs, yeah. But that was like, I felt like Davy Live Cabs was my entire life.
Yeah. Davy Live Cabs, Malcolm Ross, the solicitors.
708, 7080.
The Mortgage Point.
Mortgage Point, yeah.
7080808, the Mortgage Point.
But you can even fucking remember the numbers. But that's the point, isn't it? That's like, if all of these companies just advertised once because you've heard it, like, that's not the fucking point.
Would you remember the jingle on the old Radio City as well? 194 Radio City. I mean, my head's just full of nonsense. You know what I mean? Like, if there was a reason to cling on to advert jingles from 20 and 30 years ago, then, you know, I'd be a millionaire, but there isn't. So I'm not.
It's me Homer Simpson thing, isn't it? Like that's taken up, like there's only limited memory space in your head, and that stuff is taking up like valuable shit that you can't remember otherwise.
So I have sympathy in a way, but I don't think we mention, you know, go and pay £1 a week for an extra show.
No, but you should go and pay an extra.
You should, yeah. But I don't think we mention it that much to the point of tedium.
No, I don't.
In my opinion.
Because I think we're both conscious of it.
Yeah.
But it was funny that like that lad was just like, you've mentioned it once. And then someone else mentioned like he literally had a moan for calling ourselves middle-aged. Like he was older. And I was like, this is not a competition. I'm 43. And so I literally looked up the Office for National Statistics. There's different measurements of this. But in general, the average life expectancy for men seems to be about 82. So we're well past middle-aged, aren't we?
Yeah, we're past it.
We're
over the hill.
On us for that. But anyway,
we've got reading glasses.
I wanted to share. Some of you might have heard this before. Had you heard this one before? My favorite internet review of all time. I don't want to ask you about it. There's another one that I couldn't find. But so my favorite one was literally reviewing Liverpool as a city on TripAdvisor. Freddie Texan. Had you seen this before I gave you this?
You fucking Texan.
My wife and I visited Liverpool for our 30th wedding anniversary from Texas. Our evening was ruined when a man dressed as an adult baby called my wife a mad yank slut because she'd never heard of a band called Steps. I just love picturing that entire scene. Because you can picture it happening. Hey girl, have you heard of Steps? No, you fucking mad.
Where was it though? Like, what is it? Just was it just a review of Liverpool?
Of Liverpool. So if you go to Liverpool on TripAdvisor and there's reviews of it,
it's not like
he's given it 1 star. No, it's just of Liverpool generally. Like, so he's left. And so there's loads I love in this. Right,
a man dressed as an adult baby.
But this is the thing, right? So he's generalising about a whole city. He's saying in his don't go there. He's generalising a whole city where there's 500,000 people live based on their interaction with one person. Deeper than that, he's basing it on interaction based on one person who was an adult man dressed as a baby.
Wild.
And there's no part of his brain going, maybe I shouldn't fucking take him as my point of reference.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing about all this is, if you're from this city, you know that if there's a man in a pub dressed as a baby, it's probably a stag do from outside the city.
And he's probably had a bevy.
He's probably bladdered. I've never met a Scouse fella who's prepared to dress as a baby inside our city. Have you?
No. And
so probably this person wasn't even from Liverpool.
I like the ones like you do see, obviously like Liverpool's ended up selling itself, I think, a little bit as a destination for stag and hen nights and all that, and Matthew Street and all that kind of stuff. And so
for better or worse.
Yeah, and you see them all coming in on Friday, don't you? Like, you know, like this army of people with the pull along suitcases, all getting off at Lime Street at a certain time. I still buzz off that, I've got to be honest with you, because if you stand around or you know, you're waiting for someone or you're just in that area at the right time, you'll just hear little snippets of conversations sometimes and you think, fucking hell, lad. Do you reckon? Like, you know, I remember seeing these lads just coming into the city once, obviously not from here, and they were basically like all bragging with each other about, like, you know, I'm going to put myself like a Scouse bird and all this kind of stuff and blah, blah, blah. And like giving it loads and loads of bravado and all that bollocks. And I was thinking, they haven't been here before, have they? And there's going to be a huge wake-up call when you try and chat up women in this city. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's going to be like that.
Shut up, you knobhead. And all of that kind of stuff. And they just haven't got a clue. It's like lambs to the slaughter. You see them all coming in, and like, you know, I'd love to see the same fellas when they're leaving again.
Yeah, 100%, mate. 100%. One of my favourite memories of uni was one of my best mates who I've been mates with since like first year in uni. And it just summed up to me like how different our city was. Because I went to uni here, but he was from Sheffield. It was my first experience of realising that where we're from isn't normal. It's not like this everywhere. And we were in like a boozer in one, like, an old man's booze. Might have even been the Vines or somewhere like that. And he just went to the toilet and he came back, and we're fresh-faced 18-year-olds. And he was white. He was like pale and looked like he'd been in shock. And I went to him, the fuck's happened to you? And he went, fucking hell, mate. Like, literally every woman on the way to and from the toilet has just fucking groped me, molested me, fucking touched me up. I need to do something like this. And I was just laughing my head off going.
Come here more often.
I was like, mate, I mean, if you're going to stay here for 3 years, you need to get fucking used to that. But it just showed me how, like, we're just raised with that, weren't we? Just like, you just fucking get on with that. Don't fucking worry about it. That's just the way it is here.
It's a bit like that. I mean, like, I remember going to Newcastle for the first time years and years ago, obviously. And I was a bit like that there because I was like, well, I thought Liverpool was a bit mad for a night out.
Yeah, fucking hell. I love it. Anyway, we're running out of time. I'm going to put this out as like an appeal, right? I remember reading once reviews. I don't know whether you've ever heard of this. It was someone who'd been sacked from a cafe or a restaurant, something like that. And they put something out on the internet to say, like, they've treated me really badly. They put their story up and said, like, you know, they've sacked me. This is what's happened. They're arseholes. So basically help me fuck them. So everyone just piled on. Do you want like Google reviews? And the reviews were just, you could honestly sit there for like an hour just reading through. And they were just getting like crazier and crazier. And I was thinking of like, the owners of the restaurant or the cafe going, what the fuck is this? It was like, no stars, went to this cafe, the owner came out, kicked me in the bollocks, and I found a pube in me porridge. Like, don't go there again. But they were all just like more and more wild, like as it went on. But I can't find it anywhere.
No, I don't know what that is.
So if anyone has seen that and knows what it is, and
have you seen that
me,
people leave reviews, these like TripAdvisor reviews and all that, and Google reviews? People review McDonald's.
No.
Yeah. Like,
that's mad, isn't it?
I find that fascinating. Yeah, like, you know,
same what?
Why have you been asked to do it?
Yeah.
It's a fucking franchise.
It's the same.
It's the same stuff.
And what are they saying?
But like, just like serious reviews of it, like, do you know what I mean? Oh, well, like, you know, this wasn't quite warm enough or whatever, and blah, blah, you know, and like reviewing the actual food and going into great detail. And you're just like, or not, you know, sometimes it'll be like a couple of words or whatever, but I don't get the time and effort that's gone into doing it about McDonald's.
Surely everyone's
you know what
aware
you're
of what
going for,
McDonald's
you know
is
what
by
you're
now.
getting. And like, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't, if I wanted a McDonald's wherever I was, I don't think I'd turn to my phone and go,
what's the reviews?
I'll just check out the reviews of this guy. Like, fair enough, if you're just in a city you don't know and you're like, I want to go for a Chinese, then Tom, what
that's
are the top
point,
10 Chineses or whatever? McDonald's though. What's the best McDonald's in Liverpool?
It's just McDonald's.
It's just McDonald's.
But isn't that I've never even thought of that before.
Get on it.
Like, the whole point of McDonald's is you don't need a review, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just McDonald's. That's the whole point of going.
People are strange.
Anyway, right, we're out of time. So I'm going to read out my favourite letter of all time because it's not linked to anything other than the fact it's on the internet. I'm going to read it out and we'll just end the show at the end of it, right? So if you're not on Patreon yet, get on it. We're being dicked around by Patreon with this free trial that I mentioned last time, 2 weeks ago. But you can literally just sign up for a month for £4 to test it out, can't you?
Yeah.
And if you don't like
and
it,
you can listen to 11 shows
and you can listen to 11 shows for £4.
Or it'll be 12.
It'll be 12, yeah. And decide this for you. That's a bargain. And then if you want to cancel it because it's shit, do it and send us a message telling us it was shit. If not, like a couple of people have said about, you know, we've pushed the Patreon and some people can't afford it. We've said right from the start, of course, in this day and age, cost of living crisis, all the rest of it. If you just want to watch the free show, keep getting stuck into the free show. We're more than happy for you to do that. If you want to help us out on that side, like us on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, leave a review on a podcast app. Anything you can do like that to help, share, tell your mates. And I'm going to finish just by reading out this letter. Have you seen this before?
Yeah, I love it, yeah. I read it out to me now.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
She loved it.
I haven't read it for ages, so I usually can't get through it without laughing, so I'll see if I can. So to put in context, this is a letter written on the 6th of August 1982 from a lady who lives in an old people's home in County Down, and she's written it to Mr. Walker at Rank Xerox Limited. And she says, "Dear Mr. Walker, I want to thank you for the lovely transistor radio you and your district so kindly sent me for my birthday. It is all the more wonderful that an absolute stranger like yourself remembers old people like me. I am 97 years old and have been at the home for the last 26 years. We are... I've already started to laugh. We are treated very kindly, but the lonely hours are very hard to bear. My roommate, Mrs. James, has a radio, but will never let me listen to it and often switches off when I come into the room. Now I have one of my very own. My grandsons and granddaughters are very nice and come to see me once a month, but I know that they only come along from a sense of duty. This is why your gift is all the more wonderful and thrilling to me, as it was given out of compassion for a fellow human being. God bless you all. Today, Mrs. James' radio broke down and she asked me if she could listen to mine. I told her to fuck off.
Get in!
You're sincerely Mary Grant. Well in, Mary Grant.
Mary Grant.
Fucking brilliant.
What a woman.
See you next week.